The 2023 NBA playoffs are officially underway, and today we will be breaking down and predicting all 8 matchups. Before we get into it though, please like the video, subscribe for more basketball content, and comment your predictions down below. Now, let us get started. Beginning out east, we have the number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks taking on the 8 seed Miami Heat. The Bucks just enjoyed a week of getting their mind and bodies ready for what they hope to be a deep playoff run. The question though is, did this week provide rest or rust? Meanwhile, the Heat are fresh off an exciting down-to-the-wire play-in victory over the Bulls. Therefore, they are not well rested, but they do have some positive momentum, which may be helpful. Like any 1v8 matchup, the Heat have their work cut out for them, but this sort of upset has been done before, and it surely will happen again. The Bucks' best player, Giannis Antetokounmpo, loves to attack the rim. In the paint is where 60% of his shots attempts come from. Thankfully for the Heat, Bam Adebayo is one of the best in the league at stopping him there. Though it was only 2 games during the regular season, Giannis was held to an average of only 19 points against Bam and the Heat. We've seen it done before. You can scheme to throw Giannis off his rhythm and force the Bucks shooters to hit their looks. And if those shooters are off, then the recipe for success has been achieved. Unfortunately for the Heat, the Bucks are stacked with shooters this year. In total, they have 11 guys hitting over league average from deep, and 4 of them, being Crowder, Carter, Dragic, and Ingles, are all shoot above 40%. I anticipate Miami not necessarily shutting Giannis down, but I do think they will force a lot of threes. Unfortunately for Miami, it appears they don't close out very well on shooters because their opposition hit 36% of their long balls during the regular season, which was the second highest amongst the 16 playoff teams. And the Bucks play pretty good defense of their own that the Heat will have to overcome. And we all know how lackluster the Heat's offense typically is. They scored the fewest points per game in all of the NBA for a reason. Beyond Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, and Bam Adebayo, if anyone else can score 10, it's a major accomplishment. That's like Lowry territory, maybe. Oladipo sometimes. Brook Lopez and Giannis will most certainly shut down Bam. I like him, but his bag of tricks isn't that big. He really needs to have a point guard to set him up, and these 2 Bucks players are all defensive team candidates, and the Heat really don't have a point guard. Out on the perimeter, Hero and Butler handle the ball. Drew Holiday is going to be a major problem for one of them, then Crowder or Carter is also going to make it difficult for the other. Really, in this entire series, the Heat might not even hit 110 points. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if on multiple occasions they're held under 100. The Heat are outclassed in every possible way. Give me the Bucks in 4. Next up, we have the 2 seed Boston Celtics taking on the 7 seed Atlanta Hawks. Boston had the second best offense in all of the NBA during the regular season, and though Atlanta was also top 10, they actually ranked 7th of the 16 playoff teams, which makes them appear rather pedestrian in comparison. And when it comes to overall shooting efficiency, the Celtics beat them both in 2-point and 3-point shooting. Both teams' offenses are pretty different in how they move the ball around. In Atlanta, pretty much every possession is orchestrated by Trae Young or sometimes DeJounte Murray. The Hawks averaged the fewest passes per game in the entire league. If Boston's perimeter defenders can give those 2 a hard time, their whole offensive scheme could be thrown out of whack. Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown are all really good defenders, and they're all a lot bigger than the Hawks' offensive players. For Atlanta, the path is shutting down Boston is pretty clear. Sure, DeJounte Murray is a good perimeter defender who has had his success against the likes of Jaylen Brown, who in the regular season was held to a 23 point per game average when his season average is actually 26, and he only shot 2 of 11 from deep against the Hawks, but the Hawks have nobody who can stop Tatum. At that point, it's just wishful thinking and hoping he misses. In their lone play-in game, Atlanta absolutely dominated the glass, which is largely how they were able to pull off the upset and claim the 7 seed. As a whole in the regular season, the Hawks do a pretty good job inside. They grab more offensive rebounds than the Celtics, and they surrendered fewer total rebounds than the Celtics. Clint Capella, Onyeka Okongwu, and John Collins all may not do a whole lot on offense, but they sure do clean up the glass really well. Of course, though, the Celtics big men kind of succeed in a different category. Al Horford Sam Hauser, Grant Williams, and Mike Muscala all will pull those guys away from the hoop, which could help the Celtics rebounding. All things considered, for Atlanta to win this series, they will need their shooters to get extremely hot, and they will need their big men to give them as many second opportunities as they can, while themselves protecting the rim as well as they can from Tatum and Brown drives to the hoop. Boston just has to play their game, and we know they can play their game against Atlanta. So, even though I just talked all that up and I kind of laid out how the Hawks can do it, I don't think the Hawks are going to get it done. Give me Boston in 5. Next, we have the 3 seed Philadelphia 76ers taking on the 6 seed Brooklyn Nets. This is one of the least talked about opening round matchups in all of the playoffs, and I find it pretty disrespectful to what the Nets have accomplished post-trade deadline. Their newcomers of Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Dorian Finney-Smith have all been terrific as they have maintained their spot above the play-in. And Philly, though stacked and largely the heavy favorites everywhere you look, have a ton of pressure on them, as the likes of James Harden and Joel Embiid have a lot on the line in terms of their career legacies, and we know both of those guys care an awful lot about what other people think of them. Neither of them have yet to reach the finals in their career. For Brooklyn to pull off the upset, Embiid has to be neutralized. The MVP candidate in his 2 regular season matchups against Brooklyn managed an average of 31 points, 11 rebounds a game, and though Nicholas Claxton is about as good a rim defender as it comes, he simply has nowhere near the mass and length to consistently stop Embiid. But something interesting to take note of is Embiid's over-willingness to settle for jump shots. Almost 40% of Embiid's takes are long twos, as in not in the paint and not a three-pointer. That's a really high amount of his shots, and though he does hit them at a pretty impressive rate, 50%, that pales in comparison to his 81% efficiency at the rim. Plus, Embiid draws a ton of fouls inside, so that 81% doesn't even paint the whole picture of truly how effective he is at scoring when he is at the hoop. If Claxton and Royce O'Neal sag off of Embiid, he may just settle and he may start missing, and this might have a considerable psychological effect on his entire game. Harden, meanwhile, has slowed down considerably with age, and he actually is coming into this playoffs nursing a sore Achilles. So his outside shot not being what it used to and his speed being a little slower, it could be good for the Nets defenders. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Spencer Dinwiddie, Royce O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith, those are a bunch of good guys who can do their best to stop Harden from being a 20-10 guy. But, of course, Philly does still have Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris, who are both capable of dropping an efficient 20. In fact, the Sixers are the most efficient shooting three-point team in the entire league at a staggering 38%. And when they get fouled, they led the entire league with free throw shooting at 83%. Philly themselves have a top 5 defense inside and out. Plus, Brooklyn gives up the second most offensive rebounds in the league, which is going to be a major issue when you consider it's Joel Embiid grabbing a lot of those rebounds. As much as I like 99% of Brooklyn, aka everything but Ben Simmons, I just cannot see them winning a 7-game series with Philly. Unless an injury happens, which honestly, of all the series, I'd say is one of the more likely ones. But I'm not going to predict an injury. What I am going to predict is Philadelphia takes this series in 5. The final Eastern Conference matchup is the 4 seed Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the 5 seed New York Knicks. The most competitive first round series out east is easily going to be this one. First of all, there is a little bit of animosity between New York's fan base and Cleveland's Donovan Mitchell. Most considered him a done deal to be going to the Big Apple a while ago, but he ended up going to the Cavs, which surprised a lot of people. Knicks fans would love to see him bounced in the first round, but how likely is that? This is a matchup of elite offense with the Knicks versus the league's best defense and good offense with the Cavs. Cleveland's Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen are 2 of the best versatile big man defenders the entire league has. They're going to be a big problem for Julius Randle. The Knicks were held to 8 points below their league average when they faced off against the Cavs this season for a reason. Now, with regards to the Cavs' offense, the Knicks do have Mitchell Robinson, who is a good shot blocker, but apart from him, they do not have a lot of resistance inside. Interestingly though, the Knicks do force their opponents to shoot the third most threes in the entire league. Cleveland, though not an elite three-point shooting team, is at least adequate, and when you get such a high volume of it, you could get hot and take advantage of that. I expect Mitchell and Darius Garland to have no problem scoring 25 or even 30 every single night. The Knicks will need RJ Barrett and Jalen Brunson, who are both pretty bad on the defensive end, to step it up, but they do have Josh Hart, who they got at the deadline, who's going to do a pretty good job guarding whoever he's put on. But on the flip side, regardless of how good the defense is on the inside, Cleveland's perimeter defense is pretty beatable. Jalen Brunson averaged an efficient 25 points in his 4 games against the Cavs this year, which is above his season average. RJ Barrett and Immanuel Quickley also could score well in this series. And Randall, though he won't have much success inside, he can hit the long ball and put up 20 plus. This series is going to be a tight one. In the end though, I'm going to have the Cavs taking it in 7. Heading out west, we have the number 1 seed Denver Nuggets taking on the 8 seed Minnesota Timberwolves. This is the same situation as the Bucks and Heat matchup. The Nuggets are well rested and the Wolves have momentum. I was genuinely surprised to see how well Minnesota played against Oklahoma City in their elimination game. It may sound weird, but this won't be an easy series for the Nuggets. Rudy Gobert is still one of the league's best rim protectors. Not that Nikola Jokic does a ton of damage inside, but that typically is a point where he does take a fair share of his shots. Gobert will be a tough matchup for anyone on the block. However, most of Jokic's game is going to be just fine. He will pull Gobert out of the paint with his respectable three-point shooting, which will free up a lot of room for the guys like Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, and Jeff Green to slash to the rim. The Wolves as a whole are not a good defensive team. After a few successful backdoor passes to layups, I expect Towns to be called upon to defend Jokic so that Gobert can be put lower and protect the rim. But now you've got a less than stellar defender on Jokic, who's one of the best offensive players in the league, meaning he is going to then even easier pick apart Towns in the Wolves defense. Beyond hitting cutters, he also has amazing shooters to pass to. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Michael Porter Jr., and Jamal Murray are all guys who can score a lot of points on the perimeter. Plus, those slashers I listed off earlier also can shoot the long ball. Anthony Edwards and Towns are going to be called upon to score a ton in this series, and that's just too big of an ask. If they didn't have Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid sitting on the sideline with injuries, maybe they'd be able to fight a little bit more, because, Kyle Anderson and Taurean Prince are fine, but they're just not a match for Jokic, Gordon, and Porter Jr. This series is going to be a high-scoring affair. Give me the Nuggets in 4. Next, we have the 2 seed Memphis Grizzlies taking on the 7 seed LA Lakers. For the second time in 3 years, the Lakers are once again most people's favorite to pull off a spectacular first-round upset. Last time it did not go so well as they lost to the Suns, but this time things are different. As of right now, the Lakers are fully healthy. Anthony Davis and LeBron James are at full power, which very well may be the absolute deadliest 1-2 punch in the entire league. Though the Grizzlies do have their Defensive Player of the Year candidate Jaren Jackson Jr. available, it is tough to imagine how he can adequately protect the paint alone. The wing and perimeter players are going to have to help inside often, and thankfully guys like Desmond Bane, Dillon Brooks, and Tyus Jones are pretty good at doing that, but LA's biggest advantage is going to be their name, image, and likeness. The Lakers benefited from the most foul calls in all of the NBA in 2023, and on many occasions, these calls were absolutely bogus. Triple J may be an elite rim defender, but he is highly susceptible to foul trouble. I just cannot imagine him not getting in foul trouble every single game in this series. All AD has to do is put his shoulder down, push the defender out of the way, and flail a little, and he will probably get the call 3 out of 5 times. Other Lakers like LeBron and Austin Reeves are also pretty good at finding contact and flailing, and honestly, I hate watching Laker games because of this, but of course the Lakers are not just a foul baiting team. Post-deadline, their defense did skyrocket to near best in the league. Of course, their strength of schedule was pretty bad. And the Grizzlies, meanwhile, in the sample size of the entire season, had the second best defensive rating, only behind the Cavs. And though Steven Adams was a huge reason for this and now he's hurt, he has missed nearly half the season and they maintained that elite defensive rating. Both Memphis and LA love forcing their opponents to take threes, and both are not very good at hitting them. But LA has been trending upwards as D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, and Troy Brown Jr. all finished the year very strong with their shooting. For the Grizzlies, Ja Morant is going to have to be an MVP in this series. His shot creating and ability to draw fouls with the best of them will be dire to the team's success, and the perimeter play of the guys like Bane and company is going to have to be sharp. I picture this series being a tough one, a dramatic one. I think there's going to be some skerfuffles on the court. There's going to be a lot of bickering online and on TV. In the end, I'm going with the Lakers in 6. Next up, we have the 3 seed Sacramento Kings taking on the 5 seed Golden State Warriors. A fun fact about this matchup is this is the first year I have ever seen the Kings make the playoffs. It's the first year a lot of people have ever seen the Kings make the playoffs. I personally have been following the NBA like a hawk since the 2007 season. Coincidentally, 06 was their last playoff run, so hey, if you want to be optimistic, the Kings have not lost a playoff game since 2006. But really, I feel as though many people are banking on history way more than actual analysis of these two teams' games this year. The Kings have been absolutely unstoppable on offense. They actually had the highest offensive rating in the entire league at a staggering 119. The Warriors, who were no slouch themselves, were 8th in the league, or 7th amongst playoff teams. And though the Kings have been getting a lot of slack for their defense, which is in the bottom third of the league, yes, the Warriors aren't really that good either, as they rank in the bottom half of the league. The most significant stat, though, that I'm sure you have heard talked about ad nauseum is the Warriors' atrocious road record in the regular season. They finished with an 11-30 record on the road. That is terrible. The worst of any playoff team by a very wide margin. But what isn't being talked about is how the Kings had the best road record of all the Western Conference at 25-16. So everyone predicting the Warriors to win this series by saying surely they will take a single road game is failing to consider the possibility of them dropping one at home. I think the biggest thing that will hurt Golden State is Domantas Sabonis. He is essentially Sacramento's Joker with a post skill set unlike anyone else. Sabonis is one of very few in NBA history who can both dish out sweet passes from the elbow as well as take anyone to the hoop and use his strength to finish inside. Kevon Looney does not play a ton of minutes, but he will have to play more in this series because the Warriors are pretty small and thin otherwise. I could see him splitting his time with Draymond Green, but it's going to be tough for either of them to do this. Then on top of that, you have to force the ball out of the hands of De'Aaron Fox and Kevin Huerter, who are both able to score a lot at a very high shooting efficiency. And people are quick to point out the lack of playoff experience in Sacktown. They overlooked Harrison Barnes, though, who has literally gone the distance with the Warriors, and the fact that the Kings head coach Mike Brown was also on the Warriors coaching staff that went the distance. The Kings are going to be very good. Now, you cannot stop Stephen Curry. He may average 35 a game shooting crazy efficiently. That is how he is. But you can neutralize Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole. If you get in their heads a little bit, they do not play well. Another thing the Kings can try to do is try to entice Draymond Green to put the ball on the floor, which never ends well. For my prediction, I am going to have the Sacramento Kings winning the series in 6. And to wrap up my first round predictions, we have the 4 seed Phoenix Suns taking on the 5 seed LA Clippers. The Southwest Division is the best division in all of the NBA, by the way. The sample is small. That is the criticism of the Phoenix Suns. Kevin Durant only appeared in 8 games with them due to injuries, but as of right now, he is fully healthy and ready to go. And when healthy, the Suns have been unstoppable. They are 8-0 in games Durant plays, and he has averaged 26 points, shooting 57% from the field and 53% from 3. His ability to create looks over anyone from anywhere is a beauty to behold. I know the Clippers have a plethora of good wing defenders, especially Kawhi Leonard, who is also healthy and fresh for this series, but even with him, I can't imagine Durant being thrown off his groove. Then you have to consider Devin Booker, who plays a game very similar to KD's, shot creating from anywhere. The Suns have way too much offensive production in their starting lineup, and guys like Josh Okogie, Torrey Craig, and Ish Wainwright do an excellent job defending the opposition's very best. Plus, the Suns have Bismack Biyombo protecting the rim inside at arguably the best rate of his career. Another thing to watch out for is the Clippers have also fixed, with quotations around that word, their point guard issue by using Russell Westbrook, which has historically never worked out due to his high turnover rates and poor shooting efficiencies. Now the Clippers do have plenty of forwards to score a bunch, and I don't necessarily think they're going to be held under 110 that often, but I do think the Suns are going to score too much for them. I don't think the Clippers are going to be able to keep up. This is a pretty bold one, and you're not going to see this prediction anywhere. And keep in mind though, Paul George is out, which kind of aids the way I'm going to say this, but give me the Suns in 4. So there you have it, my first round predictions are all set and documented. I know the playoffs technically began a little bit ago. As I look over at my TV, the first game of the playoffs between the Sixers and Nets is currently in the second quarter, so forgive me for being late. Please like the video if you have not already, subscribe to stay tuned for more basketball content, and I will see you all next time.